Hello everyone, I welcome all of you to the first session on SQL Revision Tour-1. What is that I will learn in this session, sir? Yes, whatever we have studied in the class 11 with respect to the SQL queries is what I will try to give you the revision, a quick revision in fact. So guys, I will just give you the syntax, how exactly we write these queries is what I am trying to do in this session. So let me start with the first query, that is create query. So if I want to create a table, what is the syntax that I should know? So all of you should remember, I should write this keyword, that is create. Whenever you are creating a table or whenever you are creating a database, so make sure that you will use this create keyword. So then after that, you have to specify whether you are trying to create the database or whether you are trying to create the table. So here in this context, I'm trying to create the table. That's why I'm using a keyword again called table. So here you have to remember I'm using create and table. So after that, I have to specify the name of the table. So what is that I should remember when it comes to the name of the table? It can be any identifier. So make sure that the name of the table will speak on behalf of what exactly the table that you are trying to create. That is what you have to do. So whenever you are selecting a name, so please be wise enough to select the name. The name should speak on behalf of what type of table that you are trying to create. So that is one point that you should remember. The second point that you should remember with respect to the name is you should satisfy all the rules with respect to the identifier. So that is one of the things that you should keep it in your mind. So fine, I have used create and table, then table name. What next? So imagine I have something like this. So this is what I will call it as a table, right? So the name of the table, let me just write it as student. Okay, then here I have yes ID, here I have yes name, here I have ADD, here I have place. Let me just assume like this. What do you call this as? So I will call this as 4 columns. How many columns I have in my table? I have 4 columns in my table. So I have to create the columns. I have to mention the name of the column. So where do I mention? So guys, here is what I have to mention, the name of the column. So this is what here, suppose if I have yes ID, I have to write the column name as yes ID. I have to mention the column name as yes ID. Then what is this data type, sir? What type of data that you are trying to store in this column is what you have to mention in this data type. That is what you have to understand. How much size that I have to allocate for this is what you have to mention in the size place. So please remember, you have to mention the name of the column, you have to mention the data type along with the size that you wanted to allocate. Size, it is up to you. That's what you have to remember. All these things you have done it already. So I'm just giving you a quick recap. So guys, after this, how many number of columns you want? So that many number of column name, data type you will specify by separating. Please remember you have used comma here. After a pair of each column name and data type, you will use a comma. Then after that, so guys, you will end the query with a semicolon, closing bracket, and semicolon closing bracket is very, very important. So if you don't give this, you will not be able to execute this query. So that is what you have to remember at this point of time. So fine. So let me just take an example for all of you. So guys, able to see this keyword create in table? Yes. Fine. So what is the name of the table here? You can see student is the name of the table. So how many columns I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 columns in my table. The table name is student. So what is this? Yes, ID, CHAR 4. So this is what the data type I will call it as. So data type, and I'm trying to allocate 4 is my size. What is that? 4 is the size that I'm trying to allocate for this. That's what you have to remember. And this is how I create any table. Please remember, if you are trying to create the table which is already existing, so guys, you will end up with error. So make sure that the table is not there, and then you will create the table in the same name. That's all about the create table basic query. Moving on to the next one. So I have data integrity through constraints. Guys, this is one of the important things that all of you should know. What is this? Whenever you are trying to create a table, so make sure that your data is away from the redundancy. So what exactly it means? So you should store the data which is not repeated and the data which is unique and the data which is very useful for your processing. So then how do I do it? I have some of the techniques, I have some of the constraints which will help me to store the data without having repetitions. So how do I do that when I'm trying to create the table? So how do I enhance the data integrity? So that is what I'm going to explain all of you. So guys, let me start with the first one, that is primary key. Please observe here. The same thing, whatever I had taken the create query, I have just taken the same thing, but please observe here for this column name, that is SID. For this column, after giving a space, I'm using a keyword called primary space key. After that, I'm using a comma. I'm not using a comma here. Please observe that. I'm using SID space data type size space. I'm trying to enter the keyword, that is primary key. So guys, what exactly this primary key is all about? If I say the word primary key, two things should come to your mind. How many things? Two things should come to your mind. The first one is, in this particular column, that is SID, in that column, whatever the data that you are trying to enter, that should be unique. You cannot enter the repeated data. The data redundancy should not be there, is what you have to understand. That is the first and foremost thing that you should keep it in your mind. The second point is, it cannot be null. It cannot be null. What is the meaning of it, sir? That particular column, that particular cell, you cannot leave it empty. When it satisfies these two conditions, then only I will call that as a primary key. Then only I will call that as a primary key. So I am making this column as a primary key. If I enter any value to this column, so it should satisfy two conditions. One is it should not be null and the value should be unique. That is what I am trying to make it for this column. So how do I do it? So if I want to mention, or if I want to make this as a primary key, so I have to mention the keyword primary key in front of that column name. That is what you have to understand. That's all about the primary key. Moving on to the next one, I have unique key. That is what I will call it as a unique constraint. What is this? Please look here. I have the same thing. I have table here. So I have given not null, unique. Two constraints I have given. Not null, again it is a constraint. For each and every column you can specify this not null constraint. What is the meaning of not null constraint? You cannot leave that particular column empty whenever you are entering the value. That is what you have to remember. Along with that, whenever you are entering a value, make sure that the value is unique. You cannot use the redundancy there. That is what you have to remember. So guys, not null, unique, again you have two more constraints. So we have studied primary key, we have studied not null constraint, along with that we have studied unique key constraint. You can tell me, sir, can I get the exact meaning of primary key? Of course you can get. Of course you will have not null plus unique key. Obviously it will work as a primary key, but primary key is a different concept. I will explain you in the coming slide when it comes to the foreign key. Okay, this I cannot use it as a foreign key in some other place. So that is one of the drawbacks that I have. That's why I will use the primary key here instead of that. So fine. So let me not dig that particular topic and deviate you, all of you, to that particular one. So let me just explain this constraint right now. So I have not null plus unique key constraint. So that's all about this slide. What is the next one that I have? Again, I have primary key constraint that I have already explained to all of you. So in the previous slide itself. So moving on, default constraint. So please observe, default E1. What is the meaning of default E1? Imagine I have told all of you, if you attend my test, 5 marks bonus for all of you. What is that? I will repeat for all of you. If you have attended my test, 5 marks bonus for all of you. Those who have attended my test, so even they have not written anything in the paper also, fine, 5 marks free for all of you. That is what I have to enter now. So can I sit and enter everything, like to everyone 5 marks? No. By default, the value of the student marks should be 5. How do I do that? So for that, I have something called default constraint. What is that? Look here, I have a column called grade. I have a column called grade. For each and every student which I create, the grade, minimum grade should be by default E1. It can change, but by default, as soon as I create the student record, by default it will be E1. That is what you have to remember. That is what you have to remember. So with the help of the keyword default, I will be able to store the default value for that particular row, for that particular student is what you have to remember. Moving on to the next one. So I have check constraint. So fine, this is a beautiful constraint that all of you should remember. What is this check constraint? I'm taking the information, I'm just entering the student information in my database. What happens? I've taken one of the student form. So he has given his date of birth as 2015. Can I enter that? He has taken the admission for class 11 and I have to enter his date of birth as 2015. So will it be a valid data if I enter? So I don't know. Why will I calculate? I'm just a data entry operator. I'm just entering whatever they have written. I am entering the invalid data. So my system should not take such invalid data. So what is that I have to do? So I will just give here. So date of birth should be greater than or should be lesser than whatever the constant that I want. I will give it here. Hope you understood. Got my point? So suppose if that condition is not satisfying, if I enter any value, it will check that particular condition. If it is satisfying that condition, then only it will allow me to enter the value. Otherwise, it will show me an error. That is what you have to remember. You got my point? Yes. So that's all about the check constraint. What is the next one that I have? So I have foreign key constraint. So guys, so imagine I have table 1 and I have table 2. Okay, so this is table 1, this is table 2. This is very simple. How many foreign countries we have? Can you tell me? Yes, very good. So except India, everything is treated as a foreign country. So fine. Guys, listen here carefully. I have the columns here. This is a beautiful table that I am trying to write for all of you. What is this? Don't tell me Gattamana you're writing, sir. What is this? SID. SID is a primary key of T1 table. SID is a primary key of T1 table. If I use the same column name here, SID, what will happen? This SID will be treated as foreign key. This SID will be treated as foreign key. Primary key of one table will be treated as foreign key in some other table. So if I go to some other country, I'll be treated as a foreigner. You got my point? So that is the concept. So here in my country, I'm a citizen, but if I go to some other country, I'll be treated as a foreigner. So this is me, I'm going to some other table and I'm getting a treatment like a foreigner. That is what you have to understand. How do I do that? How do I create a foreign key is what we are trying to understand here in this slide. So guys, this is a keyword that you have to remember. What is this? I'm trying to create a table called create table orders. What is the name of the table? Orders. So before creating this table, I have to create one more table. So what is that? Items. In this table, I have already created item number. I've already created item number. Imagine this is the item number. Fine. I've created a table called item. In that, I have a column called item number. So fine. I have created. So guys, look here. Item number is a primary key in the table items. Fine. I want to create one more table, that is create table orders. Create table orders. Look here. Order number, not null, primary key. Fine. After that, I have one more column name. What is that? Item number. One more column name, item number. For that, what is that I'm trying to do? I'm using a keyword called references. I'm using a keyword called references. References of what? Items. Item is what? Please observe, this is the table name. References of this table. So what is that? In this table, what is the column that I'm trying to reference? This Item number is the column name that I'm referring to this column. You got my point? So I'm just taking this column, whatever the column that I have, exactly the same column, I'm taking it here. So with the help of the keyword reference, and this is the table name here, and this is the column name here. That is what you have to remember. Sir, why are you taking this item name inside this table name? Because it can be anything. It is not mandatory that I have to give item number here. I can give anything. I can give Kaushik here. Here I can use item number. So here what is that I have to give? What is that I have to give? If I use Kaushik here, I have to use Kaushik here. So whatever the Kaushik value that I have, so it will be treated with the item number here. That's the reason. So we will give the name. So that is the reason we will give the name. That is what you have to understand. So this is the concept of foreign key. Moving on, I have insert data. So guys, this is very simple that all of you should understand. If I want to insert any data into the table, I have to use the insert query. And remember, at a time I can insert only one record. That is only one row I can update. So more than that I cannot. That is what you have to understand. So fine. What is the keyword that I have to use? I have to use a keyword that is insert. Insert. Where I have to insert? So insert into. So where? So to the table that is employee. This is the table name. How many columns you have? So I have these many columns. I have to enter the column names. Then after that, what is the value that you have to enter? So I want to enter the values. So fine, start entering. The first value, whatever I have, that will be for EMP number. Second value, whatever you have, so it will be for e-name. So on it goes. Remember, if you are using a string, you will enclose it with the quotes. And each value will be separated by comma. That is what you have to understand. Suppose if the column number and the values are not matching, you will end up with an error. So be very careful. That is what you have to remember at this point of time. So moving on to the next one. I have delete. I have already inserted. I want to delete. So what is that? So guys, delete is a keyword. It's very easy in SQL to remember. So we have just used the same keywords, whatever we perform. Delete is a keyword from where? From employee. Employee is a table name. Employee is a table name where I don't want to delete everything. That's why I'm just using this condition where gross is less than 2200. 2200, that's what you have to remember. So in which column I have got the gross value less than 2200. So all those records will be deleted. That's what you have to remember. So moving on, alter table. So I have already created, remember this, it's a very interesting thing. I have already created the table, but I want to change the structure of the table. I don't want to change the data of the table. Remember, I wanted to change the structure of the table. I wanted to manipulate the structure of the table. I want to modify the structure of the table. So for that reason, I am using a command called alter table. I'm using a command called alter table. So what is the syntax? It's very simple. Alter table, table name. What is that? Alter table, table name. So you can use modify or you can use add. Okay, both the words you can use. Modify. So what is the column that you want to modify or you want to add? So guys, this is the column name, this is the data type of this column along with the size. I can also use something like this, add job character data type. That's what you have to perform here. So hope you have got a fair idea about alter table. Okay, so then drop. What is this drop? What is the difference between drop and delete, sir? Can you just explain that in detail? Yes, listen to me carefully. It's quite different in fact. Whenever you are performing the delete operation, so delete, we are just deleting the records. No sir, we're not deleting the entire table. So what exactly about the delete and drop? Listen to me carefully. When I'm performing the delete operation, I will be just deleting the data, not the structure of the table. I will repeat for all of you. When I'm performing the delete operation. So I will be just deleting the data whatever I have inside the table, not the structure of the table. Imagine I have a building. I wanted to perform the delete operation. I will flush out whatever I have in the building, but the building will be there. I cannot construct one more building in the same place, but if I perform the drop operation, entire thing I will demolish. So can I construct one more building in the same place? Yes. Same way, if you want to create the table in the same name, so first you have to drop the table, then you have to create the table. Otherwise, if you perform delete operation and if you perform create table for the same table, you cannot. So I will just repeat my example. If you perform delete operation from the building, you will just flush out whatever you have inside the building, but building will be there. So what is the meaning? So if you want to perform the delete operation, whatever the data that you have inside the table, so you will just flush out all the data, but table will be there. Physical structure of the table will be existing. So but if you perform drop operation, the entire table, even the structure will be removed, is what you have to understand. The syntax for that is drop table, table name. It's very simple to understand and remember. Moving on to the next one, I have select. What is the select command? Please understand, I have populated the data with the help of insert query. What is that? I have stored all my data to the table. I have created the table. I have inserted the data. Why? Since I have a lot of time, is it? So no. So guys, whatever the data that I have stored, I should be using it by selecting the data whatever I wanted in my way. So I have to retrieve my data. So how do I do it? Please remember, so I have select command. I have select command. So why do I have select command? So guys, I can select the number of columns that I want. I can select how I want. So I have that flexibility that I will be learning, that you will be learning one by one. So using this select query, you will be selecting what data you want. Please understand. So when it comes to the select, so we will have three clauses. Select from where. So these three clauses you have to remember. It's very simple. Select what do you want to select in the table. So you have to mention the name of the column. From which table you want to select these columns, whatever you have mentioned here. So where, this is optional. So you can specify the conditions if you want, otherwise you can skip. So that is what you have to remember. So let me start with the first one. So what is the example that I have taken? Select. What is that I have to select? So name and owner, that is the column name that I want to select. Only those columns I want to select. From where? From the table name, that is pet. From the table name, that is pet. That is what you have to understand with respect to the select. So let's start understanding this with a different context. When I give star, select star from EMP, what is the star? Star will select all the column names. Whatever the column names you have in the table, if I use an operator called star, everything, complete entire table will be selected of the table EMP. That is what you have to understand. Instead of writing all the column names, I will just give star. So that is what you have to remember. And here, reordering the columns. I want the data in this particular order only. So suppose if you have any specifications like that, I want the first column to be species, next name, and then sex. So guys, you can specify the column name. So that reordering option is there whenever you are selecting the data. Though you have stored the name in the first column and the species in the second column and the sex in the third column, so you can reorder when you are selecting the data. That is possible with the select option. Fine. Moving on to the next one, distinct. What is distinct? So guys, if I use a keyword called distinct before the name of any column, what will happen? Can you tell me what will happen? So what is the name of the column here? The name of the column is owner. So guys, whatever the data that I have here in the owner column, so only the unique values will be retrieved. The duplicate values will be avoided. So what is the meaning of it, sir? I wanted to select the pet owners. Imagine Kaushik has got dog, cat, and also some other pet animals. So my name is repeated thrice in the table, but I just wanted to check the different owners that I have. So why do I need 3 times Kaushik in the table? So I just want only once. So for that, what should I do? I will use the keyword that is distinct. So distinct owner. So only once the Kaushik will be repeated. That is what you have to understand. So that is the power of distinct. So then I have all. What is the use of all? All is basically clarifies the rather than a function statement. So what is describe? So if you want to know the structure of the table, how many columns you have, each column is of what data type. So all the physical structure of the table, if you want to know, so guys, you have to execute this command. So they have given describe pet. You can also execute like this. You just have to write DESCPET. This is a table name, right? Even if you just execute this, you will be able to get the structure of the physical table. So guys, this is a session 1 with respect to the SQL revision tour. So we have tour 2. So we'll meet you in the second tour of SQL. Till then, please take care of your health. Stay healthy, stay happy. Thank you very much. Goodbye.